Um, but yeah, going back to the other discussion, it's I don't know as far as the decline of long format, the format for informative, more documentary style videos. I would I would say not an exception. I would say that documentary style videos are that's something that people still do prefer. That is longer format, but again, I still notice that more people will watch shorter, broken up, longer part documentaries than they will watch a big giant one. Did anybody here watch that Xbox one? The it's like the history of the Xbox. Let me see. History of Xbox. I forget. Let me find out exactly what it was called here. Power On. The story of Xbox. Did anybody watch that? I watched the whole thing. That was actually super interesting. Something I've become aware of is how an era of trying your best to make quality product that will improve to the world industry that will prove to the world why your industry matters is then followed by a financial boom, which is then followed by where we've convinced the masses now to start cutting corners to maximize profits. I watched part of it. I watched all of this. This is a very, very interesting documentary series. Documentary series. It is 6 parts long. 6 parts? 6 parts long. Each part is 40 minutes. I think you would get more viewers watching 6 40-minute episodes than if it was one giant 4-hour episode, right? What is this? 240? 4 hours. 4 hours. That's 4 hours worth of documentary. If you put out a 4-hour video, I think you would have had a lot of people watch it. But I think more people are willing and able to watch 6 40-minute videos. Not a documentary, but this is the last long thing I watched. Is this porn? Are you going to show me porn? Here, let me wait for that ad to end. When the ad is up, I can't see how long the actual video is. Come on, ads, click through. Hold on. I'm waiting for the ads to disappear so I can see how long this video is. Skip ad. Oh my God. Nobody told you to do that. 2 hours, 16 minutes. Yeah. You probably get more people watching that if you did it as a series. If you did it as 4 half-hour videos. Remember Blip before it was blipped? Did they ever have a try our best era? Dead Space 1, 2, and 3 coming to mind, actually. I said earlier, but look at movies versus shows like that. People don't like the idea Batman is 3 hours long, yet the same people will gladly binge Netflix when they announce an 8-hour an 8-episode series at 30 minutes. And it's funny, Lilac, because that's one of those weird things where it's sort of contradictory, where people will watch it. They'll wait for a season to end so that they can watch the whole season all at once, and they want to binge it all day. But I think that part of it is that there's still this idea that you're absorbing it in chunks. Even though you're watching it all day, you still feel like you're absorbing it in chunks. And I think that has to do with the fact that it's made that way. You're not watching, and this is the problem. Maybe this is the problem, Lilac. When you watch 8 half-hour episodes, you are watching an opening. You're watching a beginning, a middle, and an end 8 times. Right? You're watching an opening. You get a cool song at the beginning. Hopefully, you get a 3-act story at the end of it. That part of the story resolves, and then you go to credits, and then you go to the next episode. you're getting that structure 8 times. If you watch a 4-hour movie, you're getting this is what you're going to feel like you're getting. A bloated beginning, a middle that has a bunch of stuff that you don't care about, and then a resolution that after 3.5 hours doesn't feel like it is resolved enough. That's what people feel like they get when they watch a 3 or 4 hour long movie. Whereas if they watch 3 and 4 hours worth of a show, they are getting a beginning, middle, and end, and then another beginning, another middle, another, and they're getting it over and over and over again. The perception of what you're absorbing is different. And maybe it is actually, and it is kind of actually different. It is actually structured in a different way that is more appealing and more consumable for a lot of people. I know I'm like that. I can tell you right now I'm like that. I don't mind if a 3-hour, 4-hour movie is good. Hey, Trios, I don't mind. But I can tell you that rarely have I ever seen a movie that long that I really, really enjoy. I love Lord of the Rings. I thought Lord of the Rings were fantastic. That extended version of Return of the King was way too long, and I love that movie. But it was way too long. Why? Just because it's a bloated version of a story that it runs consistently for too long. It's if that makes any sense. I feel like I'm saying it wrong, but it's a linear story that runs too long. Whereas I'm not getting bites of the story presented in a way that is more consumable for me. I'm going to be looking doing a bit of housework, but still listening. I've come back around to that idea. I can sit through a 4-hour video just fine. I can't watch more than 3 episodes of a series. But there's some series that are made as 4 to 5 hour long shows, and then they just chop it up. So it's not made to be episodes. It just gives the illusion. Movies are different because you don't feel like you can just stop in the middle and come back. Yes. Each format, episode format lets you stop easier, but for online video pausing, it's so ingrained that you don't have to think about it. Have y'all ever seen that quote from a Mass Effect creator that addresses how he experienced a roller coaster of this era progression, ending with him feeling like a zombie of his former self? No, that sounds really interesting though. I get what you're saying. Like, I can watch a 30-minute show series, but not those hour-long episode series on Netflix. They feel too long. I remember I tried to watch Arrow. Years ago, I tried to watch Arrow, and all the episodes just felt like they were too long. If you would have written them a certain way and cut them up a certain way, I think I would have absorbed it better. It felt a little too bloated, and the longer you get, the more nowadays, the more bloated something feels because it's not made a decent way. You know what's a good and somebody, you sort of mentioned it earlier, like movies that are made longer, but they're just chopped up. Stuff like the G.I. Joe movie from 87. I think it was 87 was the G.I. Joe movie. This movie was basically 5 TV episodes. It was 5 episodes, and they used to air it on TV as 5 episodes. They would start it on Monday, and every day you'd get the intro, and then you'd get the next part of the story, and they would air it on TV as 5 episodes throughout the week. And but that ultimately was a movie. I think it was released in the theaters, but that was a movie. If you watch the movie, you can even tell where the breaks are for some of the episode breaks. You can even tell where some of them are. That's a great way to make longer format content. I get what funnily enough, most Book of Boba Fett are 54 minutes. Only the first episode was 32. Depends on the show. Most TV shows that are trying to meet 8 to 13 hour movies kind of bore me when I try to binge them, but I can easily binge watch sitcoms and tokusatsu shows. Traditional length. American TV seasons with 45-minute episodes. Yeah, 45 minutes is usually, if you get an hour-long show, that's usually about 45 minutes worth of show. Feels like a big ask now. Not sure I'd be following all of Star Trek if all of them were still following that old system. Yeah, it's wild because we're talking about this as YouTube, and this is something that was going on with television. the idea of longer TV shows is something that has been diminishing from people's interest for a while now. I think, anyway. I don't know. Obviously there's going to be exceptions. But for the most part, I think that a lot of people are like, yeah, I would rather just wait and watch it in smaller chunks or something. And like somebody said, and this actually dips into video games. It's going to dip into video games in a way that I've talked about before, which is it feels like less of a commitment. Even if it's not. 4 hours of half-hour shows, right? 8 half-hour shows. Feels like less of a commitment than a 4-hour movie. Because I can stop. Even if I don't, I can stop at some point and I will feel like I've got a whatever the last episode I watched, I got a resolution, and then when I start up again, I'm going to get the beginning of a new story. If I stop a 4-hour movie halfway through, I'm going to be stuck right in the middle of the story, and what's going to happen is I'm going to start it up, and I'm not going to get any kind of recap. I'm not going to get any what's the word? Exposition. They're not going to explain what was going on before. I'm going to start literally in the middle of a story. So a 4-hour movie feels like more of a commitment than 4 hours of half-hour episodes. That's what I have with video games. I'm probably more likely to play 10-hour games than I am to play one 100-hour game, because that 100-hour game just feels like a bigger commitment. And if I step away from that 100-hour game for a week or two and I come back to it, I am lost. I don't remember how to play the game. I don't remember where I'm supposed to go. Whereas 10-hour games, each one is a unique experience. Each one will again run me through how I play the game, what's going on in the story, and it feels easier to consume. Depends on how good that 100-hour game is for me. I mean, that's always, like I said, that's always going to be the case. That's always gonna, Wario. Let's say a 9 out of 10 100-hour game versus 10 9 out of 10 10-hour games. That's why we're talking about equal quality. We're talking about equal quality games here. If you have equal quality games, a lot of people will rather consume 10-hour 9 out of 10 games than they would consume a 100-hour 9 out of 10 game. Equal quality, most people will take that because it's easier to consume. I've been chipping away at Breath of the Wild and Red Dead 2 for 2 years. For years, or Red Dead 2 4 years. I actually noticed that myself. While also being hypocritical too, I can't finish The Witcher 3 because it feels too big. There's too much to do. Meanwhile, I'll happily play SMT, Persona, which is usually 100 hours easy, or even Final Fantasy 14. And Final Fantasy 14, MMOs. MMOs are a great example of that. MMOs are thank you for bringing that up. MMOs are a fantastic example of this, because with MMOs, you have this idea. What does everybody tell you about MMOs? What is the impression that everybody has about MMOs? Oh, it's great. You pop in, you run some dungeons, you do some story. It's awesome. You play at your own pace. It's great. And then you play 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. In that time, you could have played that 100-hour game that you think is too much of a commitment. But because it's presented in a way that makes you feel like I can do this at my own pace, your pace becomes breakneck speed. I think it's part of why I can play MMOs, though. It is doing it current. The story are usually about 10 hours a patch, 40 on expansion. It's bite-sized chunks in large quantity. Leroy Jenkins. At least I got chicken. I started Spyro 1 for the first time 3 days ago. I'm almost done, and I feel gratified with that. Yeah, it's an interesting correlation to what we were talking about before with the video format. I think a lot of it just Para, that is really, that's sort of the bulk of it. Is that's a good term for it. Digestible pacing. That really is the bulk of the whole discussion here. Whether you're talking about content on YouTube or content creation on the internet in general, whether you're talking about movies and TV shows, episodic format versus movie format, whether you're talking about super long games versus shorter games, digestible pacing is the name of the game. It's can you fit this experience into your life? That is the name of the game here. Can you fit this experience into your life? And the reality is, shorter experiences fit better into people's lives because they can either squeeze them into the few moments that they have to do anything, or they can binge them all in one shot, and still get what they're looking for. If you are somebody who likes to sit down for 3 hours a day and watch YouTube videos, you can do it with a 3-hour video, or you can sit there and watch 10-minute videos throughout the course of those 3 hours and get a whole bunch of different kinds of content. If you are somebody that only has 10, 20 minutes a day, you will probably not go towards that 3-hour video because you're not going to want to keep stopping and starting and stopping and starting. You're more likely to watch 1 or 2 10-minute videos. My problem with long game series, I usually push myself to finish because if I don't and take a break, I usually never come back. And if I do, I have to replay because I forgot everything. It's interesting because I'd rather play multiple matches of a fighting game for hundreds of hours instead of playing a game that gives me more content than I can handle. Ronan, I have hundreds and hundreds of hours in Call of Duty Warzone. I could have taken 100 of those hours and played Persona 5. But I don't. Why? Because when I play Warzone, I play for an hour and a half at a time, maybe, assuming I didn't rage quit. I play for an hour and a half at a time. If you try and play Persona 5 specifically, an hour a day, it breaks the entire pacing of the game, in my opinion. And that it's not a desirable way to play the game. Imagine every time you start playing something in an RPG and you start doing something, right? You go and you gear up your character, you adventure this area, you explore, you talk to NPCs, up, your hour's up, it's time to stop playing the game. You feel like you didn't accomplish anything. Whereas if I play, Warzone or again, Final Fantasy, if I play an MMO, I can hop on an MMO for an hour, I can run a couple of dungeons, and I can feel like I accomplished something, and I've only spent an hour and a half doing it. Whereas if you try and play a regular RPG for an hour a day, it feels like you're just stopping all the time. Every time something's getting interesting, you're stopping. Monster Hunter. Somebody mentioned Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter's a great way. That's one of the reasons I sucked so much time into Monster Hunter. Because, yeah, there are days where I'm going to play Monster Hunter all day. And there are days where I only feel like playing it for an hour. So what do? I go and I grab a couple of hunts. I hunt the monsters. I carve them up. I, maybe take 1 or 2 story quests, and I'm done for the day. And I feel like I got a complete experience. I got a beginning, I got a middle, I got an end, and I turned the game off. Whereas with a longer style game, I turned the game on in the middle of what I was doing last time, and then when I got to the end of the hour and a half, I'm still in the middle somehow. I'm still smack dab in the middle of that game.